Good afternoon, everyone, and hello, those of you out on the internet. I would like to share with you in these few minutes a novel idea and a very simple practice that I hope you'll find has tremendous implications and that helps to give us a flavor for Buddhist practice, what Buddhist practice is about on a day-to-day basis. The practice is called Practice Contentment. Contentment is something that I think we could all agree we need more of, that we don't have very much of. In our time, in our society, especially in modern times, it's rare for us to experience inner peace even for a few hours, isn't it? And very often we find ourselves worrying about things. We have so many anxieties, and it seems as if we're worrying about something until that stops, but before long we have something else to worry about and have so many pressures and tensions on us. Contentment is elusive at best. And probably most of us would agree that we can't be happy without contentment. And so this practice of practicing contentment, I hope you'll find, is a very beneficial one and one that we can all put into practice immediately, regardless of our spiritual views or inclinations. Along the way, we're going to explore some misconceptions about this thing called contentment and see if we can't unearth some unexamined assumptions and perhaps replace them with the novel idea that I just mentioned a moment ago. So one of our misconceptions about contentment is that contentment is something that maybe some people, the fortunate ones in life, are born with, and that wasn't me, and well, I'm just out of luck. And blame it on my DNA or my genes or my parents or what have you, but there's nothing I can do. Whereas perhaps we've known someone in the past, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, and it seems like they're always just so content. But there's nothing I can do to find contentment myself. This is one unexamined assumption that may underlie some of our views about contentment and about where happiness comes from. Another unexamined assumption about contentment is that contentment arises solely from external conditions. So-and-so has a great marriage, so-and-so has a great job, or so-and-so right now is on a beach somewhere in the South Pacific, and so of course those people are content. Of course. And it follows, therefore, that contentment requires the amassing of all sorts of external conditions. And we might have noticed throughout our life that the things that we need, or that we think we need to have contentment, they become more and more elusive. They require more and more hard work, money, or just good luck to get. So once again, the unexamined assumption here is that contentment arises solely from external things. That it's something that we can't do anything about solely from our own side with our own mind. So here's where the novel idea about contentment comes in. And the idea is this, that contentment is something you can learn. Contentment is something you can actually practice. It's like a skill. Maybe like a foreign language. And for us, it's a foreign language that we don't speak very well. But how wonderful if we could actually learn the language of contentment. Then we could be contented people, regardless of where we are, whether we're driving on our way to work on a rainy Monday morning, or whether we're off at that nice vacation spot in the South Pacific. So if contentment is something that we can learn, then contentment is certainly something we're going to need to practice. And this is where the subject of practicing contentment really comes in. The practice of practicing contentment is very simple, and it goes something like this. When you find yourself in a situation when you're feeling a little bit anxious, a little bit upset, a little bit maybe frightened or tense, pause, give yourself a few moments, and just think to yourself, although this situation is not the way I want it, right now I am practicing contentment, and therefore I am content. There are many situations which if you examine your day-to-day life, when you can actually do this. For example, when you're driving to work, or when you're in the checkout line at the grocery store. I mean, who really cares what Brad Pitt and Jen and Angelina are up to anyway, right? We all know those magazines they put to keep you distracted in the checkout line. Actually, now they even have televisions in some checkout lines. But all of these kind of external things, actually, they're not addressing the inner sources of our discontent, the way this practice can begin to, because it has a wonderful way of turning our attention inwards. And so at such times, we can definitely say to ourselves, once again, although this situation is not the way I would like, I am content. And there's no contradiction between doing this and maybe getting in the other checkout line if it's moving faster. And we have to be sensible when we apply these practices. No one's saying that if your house is on fire that you should sit there and practice contentment. But we have so many opportunities in our day-to-day life when actually this is all we need. And if only we would begin to practice this type of practice, then perhaps gradually over time we would become more and more fluent in the language of contentment. So this type of practice is, as I mentioned, gives us a flavor of Buddhist practice more generally. There are many other practices that we can learn to do which may build upon the very simple practice of contentment. Really what we're talking about from the Buddhist point of view is patience. The patience of voluntarily accepting suffering. The suffering of our day-to-day inconveniences and hassles. So if you'd like to learn more about this patience, you can certainly look in Geshe Kelsang's books, How to Solve Our Human Problems and so on. Many of these books have wonderful sections on the practice of patience. But in order to engage in these types of practices, we have to start with a basically contented mind. We can't start with an agitated mind, with an afraid mind, and so on and so forth. And so this practice of practicing contentment may help as a very first step toward more profound methods of transformation of the mind. So if you would like, we can practice this right now. And maybe take a few minutes to gather into meditation and just rehearse these words. Practice contentment. Okay, so if you would, please sit comfortably, with your back straight but relaxed. And you may close your eyes. Give yourself a few moments to gather your mind by becoming aware of your breath. And now simply remember these words. I am content. Very simply, you may repeat these words, I am content, very gently. Allow their meaning to sink in. You may even imagine yourself in your day-to-day life remembering this practice. Although the situation may not be exactly as I want, I am content. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you very much.